So today I'm going to give you guys some tips on what are the best ways to go about learning how to program. Hi there everyone, my name is Steve Bishop from ProgrammingMadeEasy.com, and we're going to be doing a live stream today. This is Coffee with Steve. Thank you so much for joining me. And yes, I've got my coffee right here. It's ready to go. So thanks for joining me today. I know a lot of you guys already know who I am. You've already come to my channel all the time, ProgrammingMadeEasy.com, and I really appreciate everybody who does come here. And today's subject, I think, is one that a lot of people are very interested, because obviously if you're coming to my channel, Programming Made Easy, you're probably picking up on tutorials or you like these little helpful tip videos. And today is really not going to be any exception. I think this is one of those topics that a lot of people are really interested in. This industry is so incredibly hot right now. There's so much interest in trying to get developers and trying to get people. It's the different businesses are looking for developers in a very bad way. So the first thing I actually wanted to do was I'm going to talk a little bit first about this Stack Overflow survey. There were a couple of interesting statistics in there for the 2019 survey that I thought I would just kind of share real briefly here. So the first one is that about 24% of Stack Overflow surveys, you know what, let me find it here. Hold on, there it is. Okay, so about 25% or 24% of the respondents said that they were students. So we get 74 or 75% saying they're not active students. So the rest of them, about 24%, were active students. Okay, either full-time or part-time. And it seems to me that you may not necessarily always be going through some sort of college education, but you should always be learning. Right? There's this you should always be trying to find the next piece of information, the next bit of information, next skill that's going to get you hired at that next job that you want, and be tracking what are the skills that you need in order to get to the next level. Like, what are the things that you want to do? Having some sort of plan. What is the kind of job that you want to do? I knew at a fairly early time when I started doing software development, like as a profession, that one of the things that really was drawing to me, and partially because of the channel, was the education side. I loved teaching people how to code. And I have this one phrase that I like to tell people all the time. I love to code, but I love to talk about code even more. Like, I love to talk about code and have very opinionated discussions about what are the best ways to do certain things. And let me just double check. You guys are all here. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. So everybody's excited to learn about this. Okay. So about 24% of people were students. I myself am not currently a student, but I kind of wish I was. I'm thinking about, sometimes it enters my brain, should I go and take a little part-time course? So I think that that's a very good thing to do. At least take a couple of courses every year from either a community college, or if you can get to a university, take a couple courses, or sometimes it's just going to some sort of website that offers like online education. So now another interesting little factoid here that I think is kind of surprising, I guess, is the fact that over 80% of the developers that responded to this survey on Stack Overflow had a degree. Like, in some way, shape, or form, they had a degree. And there were 11.4% of the people who had some college level, interest, but didn't get a degree. So that's a lot of people that tried to go through a college or a university, right, in order to get that information, or at least to get some sort of degree. Not necessarily computer science related or technology related, but got some sort of degree. And that's interesting to me that there's that, like 80% of us have gotten some sort of a degree. And I'm one of the 20% that didn't, right? I did not get a degree. I did go through very little college, but had absolutely nothing to do with programming. And I dropped out after one semester because I really, really did not like the way that the instructors were very biased in their opinions on certain things. And that really had nothing to do with politics. It was stuff that I really did know. And like the teacher was not as knowledgeable as I was in it. And it was pretty obvious to me. And I'm like, maybe college isn't for me if I know a little bit more. And that's not, it wasn't an arrogant statement. It was like, literally, I have been doing something for many, many, many years. And this person was telling me, no, it goes this way. It goes, there needs to be this other thing. And I was like, that doesn't really make sense. Anyway, so now I kind of want to now dig into a little bit of the nitty gritty, and I'm going to pull away from sharing my screen here. So one of the things that is very interesting to me is, how do you learn, right? So we know that a lot of people are going through colleges, they're going through some sort of education system, and that's great, but colleges are kind of monolithic in their approach, right? There's very static ways. You have lectures, you have perhaps student aids, you have, peer study groups, you have just lots and lots of material, books and books and books of stuff, reading material. With a little bit, you have labs too, obviously, to go through. And the labs are designed in order to get you to actually do something and participate and do something active with your hands. And this, it seems like the triangle, if you were to think of it as a triangle, okay, is like the bottom part is all this reading and trying to comprehend through verbal and auditory communication, like verbal and reading skills, right? And then at the very, very top is where you have the actual active learning, and you're actually going to do something. I think with the CS degrees and stuff, it's probably that top end is probably a little wider, right? You obviously you have to code, you have to write a bunch of things. You're building a lot of programs. You have to submit your applications to prove that you can write the code that's being necessary. So obviously in certain disciplines, there's going to be a little bit, that triangle is going to be a little bit shifted on what's actually being done. But there's been a long-standing and very controversial, sometimes even completely overthrown, but I think that it's kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, concept here of there's actually, they say 4 primary learning styles. Okay, 4 learning styles. There's auditory, visual, they call it the VARK, say VARK. So visual, auditory, reading and writing, and kinesthetic. Okay, so I actually take out the reading and writing because I think that I really think that's an auditory skill, and I'll explain that in here just a second. But essentially, we've got these 3 primary or 4 primary learning styles. And okay, there's a lot of studying that's been done about this, and almost the overwhelming majority of it says, this is a complete farce, right? The VARK system, throw it out, it doesn't work. And I think the problem is there's an easy dependence upon it. Okay, so when you're trying to go through and learn something, knowing what your primary learning style is okay. It's good to know because it can help you understand, like, when am I going to feel most comfortable? So you can kind of assess, am I a visual learner? Am I an auditory learner? Am I a kinesthetic learner? Or am I a reader-writer? But I don't think that you should really particularly emphasize one over the other at all times. Sometimes if you can find a way to learn something through that learning style that is more helpful, that's great. But really, all learning is a combination of these different styles together, right? You have to go through all of them at some point, really. And some you can get away with some, depends upon the skill that you're trying to learn, obviously. Like if you're trying to learn how to paint, maybe you don't necessarily need to go through the reading and writing. Now, real quickly, I actually lump reading and writing into the auditory. I think it's all kind of one because it's all has to do with verbal communication, right? Reading and writing, if you think about it, when you're reading something, you're actually kind of reading to yourself. You have like this internal voice reading and telling you. So it's all kind of auditory, in my opinion. And I'm no expert in this field. I'm not a scientist. Obviously, again, I didn't even go to college. Well, I didn't last through college, I should say. But it seems to me it's an obvious thing. We all have like this preferred way that we like to learn. And it seems to me that they're kind of throwing out that idea where they're like, no, this is total bunk. It's total crap because we don't have any scientific evidence that proves that this is great. And I think that that's a little bit too much. I think there's something to it. I just don't think that we need to completely overhaul our educational system upon it, right? I'm not saying that all of the schools and universities need to go and just, dive into this auditory visual kinesthetic model. Okay. Now, I'm also going to, there's a pretty famous quote by Confucius. It says, I see and I forget. I hear and I remember. I do and understand. Okay. And that to me really, really helps reinforce where I think you should go the most, especially when it comes to software development. So I see and I forget. I hear and I remember. I do and I understand. Okay. Now that's more or less Confucius's own interpretation of what's going on. But I think that there is something there in that doing is the really big learning area, right? That's where you really, really, really learn, is when you can actively do something and interact with something and make a change. When you actually actively make a change in the environment and get kind of hands-on, that's when things really, really start to spark. Now, going into that, I think that there's an interesting spark here that happens with it when it comes to learning. And that is, there's this order from chaos, okay? It's this concept of bringing order to chaos. So let me just bring back there we go. I'm going to do very crude drawings here. So if you had, let's say that this little tiny area here was how much knowledge you had, okay? So this is knowledge. Come on, type. Okay, we'll move this over in there. Okay, so that's the amount of knowledge that you have. Obviously, not very much, right? Very, very little. And what really knowledge is order. I understand this. I completely get it. All the pieces of this puzzle fit together for me in this little circle, right? This is that knowledge circle. This is what I understand. And the problem is, what we don't know is like probably not even going to be accurately represented. Like I can't draw a big enough circle for what is unknown, right? There's just so much unknown that it's absolutely ridiculous. And really all that we're trying to do whenever we're trying to learn something is we're trying to make this little circle grow a little bit bigger, right? We want it to be just a little bit bigger the next time and a little bit bigger the next time, right? We're just trying to grow it and grow it and grow it. And really what you're doing is you're nibbling into the unknown. And the unknown is chaos, right? Everything that you don't know feels chaotic. I don't get it. You might have scared of it, right? It's like this, I totally blah, 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 right? You fear it. You don't want to know it necessarily. You just really shy away from it. So you really kind of only work around the outskirts of what you do know, right? You just kind of nibble more and more from what you already know. You start to nibble further and further away at that unknown, that chaos. But really what it is, if you really think about it, it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. You're bringing order from chaos. There's something that you don't understand. It feels chaotic. It feels almost scary. But then the moment that you do put those pieces together, right? It's like, that's not so scary anymore at all, right? I suddenly understand. That is really where I think that dopamine comes from, that adrenaline, is that something is really big and scary and chaotic, and here I've gone and given it some order, right? And then once you have that order, right, and you have like, especially if there's something really exciting, like, hey, this scared me for forever, and now I understand it, you kind of want to like spread that, right? You kind of want to take that and go, look at what I've learned. Look at what I can do. Let me explain this to you. Like, this got me for so long, and now I totally understand it. I got to show this to you. that's that energy, that excitement, that dopamine hit that we get every time that we learn something new. And it's, in a way, it becomes very therapeutic. It becomes kind of this drug that we got to go get more knowledge. You got to go get more. And this industry of software development is ever expanding. And that's the other thing is, like, not only is the knowledge that we are accumulating growing, but this unknown is also growing, right? That I can't possibly draw it bigger, but that unknown that's going is also expanding, right? So we know this little bit, but the unknown is also growing. And there's more and more people that are kind of populating up in here, right? That are just kind of like, yeah, stop that. I can't stop it. There we go. So we got like other people, right? They're like filling in some of these blanks around the unknown and helping us to kind of edge our own understanding of knowledge. But that it's really important to understand the unknown is also expanding. So what we do know, the order that we have of what we understand is expanding, but so is that chaos. It's getting bigger. And especially in the software development industry, because more and more stuff just keeps coming, right? You can specialize in a field and continue like your entire lifetime learning about that specialty. And then while you're doing that, there's other sectors of this industry that are growing in completely different directions. Like I spend most of my time doing web development, okay? Maybe some desktop development, but mostly web development. Yet there's this whole AI and machine learning stuff that's going on. Does anybody understand it? What about blockchain? You guys all understand and comprehend blockchain? If you're spending all this time doing web development and learning about web development, how much time do you have to spend working towards blockchain, right? Or data science, right? Or cybersecurity. Like, how are you going to spend all that time? So you kind of have to wedge out, what is it that I feel, what is it that I understand, and start carving out some of that, right? Start carving out little bits and pieces around what you already know, and just continue to grow that knowledge and start to bring order from chaos, right? Okay, so let's keep moving on. So the next thing that I wanted to bring up was that you should always be trying to learn. And I mentioned this earlier. You should always be trying to find out what is the next skill I need to know in order to advance my career, or get me, or sometimes it's just, maybe it has nothing to do with career. Sometimes it's just, hey, this is a really cool thing. I want to learn more about it. Okay. And that's great. Like when you can enter that zone of, hey, this just seems interesting. I want to learn more about holograms. I want to learn more about, artificial intelligence or machine learning, or I want to learn more about, more of the low-level language. I want to learn assembly. I want to learn, like, whatever interests you. You should always be learning, though. And this was something I asked in the interview with Uncle Bob way back a couple years ago. He actually said you should be trying to learn a new language every year, like a new programming language every year. That's pretty ambitious, but I think it's not far away from the mark. You should probably be trying to learn some sort of new either framework or language every year. I think that's a really, really good way to go. Now, along with always be learning, this is a big one. This is a big one for me. Not only should you always be learning, you should always be teaching. Okay? You should always be teaching. Share the knowledge. Share your information. Right? Spread it out. Share your resources. If you find things, share my web channel, right? Share programmingmadeeasy.com, because when you start to take on other people's challenges, you start to grow not only in your comfort level of what you understand, but you also have a learning opportunity, because quite often they're going to be asking you questions and you're going to be like, that's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. Let me go look it up, right? And so you, by proxy, you've expanded on your knowledge. You have found some other new avenue to go explore because they have asked you about it and you hadn't thought to ask about it. And that's one of the great things about this industry, is that we all have so many different kinds of pursuits and have so many different perspectives that when we have these communications and we talk to each other about what we're doing, we start to expand each other's worlds, right? We start to bring more order to the chaos because other people, we kind of, our circles kind of bump, right? And we kind of start to, oh, hey, you know, you already have some of this order. Let me go grab some of that from you. And that's very, very helpful. And if you are teaching, if you are actively teaching, you are growing in confidence in knowing your own puzzle pieces, right? Knowing that order from that chaos. You become more comfortable with that, but you also have the opportunity to expand upon it. Okay. So, always be learning, always be teaching. Okay, so now there's a couple last things I want to do here, and that is a couple of websites that I definitely would encourage you to go check out and do regularly. So the first one is, let me just bring this back up. The first one is codekata.com. So let me just copy this and paste this over here. I'm going to do another plug for codekata.com. Katas are a really good, they're like little tiny sample applications to go build. And this has to do with that kinesthetic learning that I'm emphasizing, right? So doing it actively, right? Not just a passive learning. We categorize auditory as passive and visual as passive. Like you're not actively doing anything. You're just kind of sitting there listening or sitting there and watching and trying to absorb. Kinesthetic learning is active learning. Like I am actually doing it. I am actually trying to attempt it. So doing coding katas is a really, really good way of kind of challenging yourself to do small, little, tiny projects. Bowling kata is a good one. The FizzBuzz kata is a really, really common example of doing one. And there's a lot of different ones that they've got on this code kata, right? They got supermarket, karate chop, how big, how fast, data munging, okay? Checkout, objectives. There's a whole bunch of these, right? And they're all just kind of sorting it out just because we need to sort something. Okay, so sorting balls, sorting characters, right? So there's just kind of like these little challenges to do. Okay, speaking of challenges, another really good one is codewars.com. And again, I'll post the links to all of these in the description, but Code Wars is, it's been around for a while. It's a pretty well-known website to go and just kind of like challenge your skills, right? You get some sort of challenge, kind of like a kata, and then you go and you try to do it and you try to beat other people at it, okay? So Code Wars is a really good one. Then there's obviously stackoverflow.com. Now, here's what I want to say about the stackoverflow.com. What's the way that you can use Stack Overflow to become a knowledge tool, a way to gain knowledge, is most people try to use this to just to go like answer a problem and go get the answer to a question. But really what you should be doing is actively seeking out someone else's question, right? That always be teaching. Go find a question that you can answer and do it regularly. Like go out here, help your fellow developer figure out what's going on, because then you have to be able to articulate it in a non-visual manner, right? You have to like talk about it. You have to explain yourself. You have to explain how this all works. And that becomes a real deep challenge of how do I explain this thing that I understand and put it out there in words? That's a really difficult thing for a lot of people to do, but that's exactly why you should do it, because it will just cement that knowledge that much more. And you're helping everybody else out, right? You're helping other people out with their challenges. The other one, obviously, watch Programming Made Easy, right? So if you go to Programming Made Easy, madeeasy.com. Let's see if it works this time. I think the last time I tried to do this, it didn't work. There we go. All right, we're good. Oh, look, I'm live. Huh, who would have thought? So yeah, if you go to programmingmadeeasy.com or really YouTube in general, you can find so many videos on how to do so many different things. And I am trying to constantly, like at least once a month, I try to go through some course or some video, some larger video to learn, like to learn about some sort of skill. Even if it's something I already know, even if it's something I already have learned, it's good to have that reinforcement by going and watching it again. Another great resource is if you're in the .NET sphere, is Microsoft Virtual Academy. So that's mva.microsoft.com. So MVA, Microsoft Virtual Academy. And it's just free training. It doesn't cost anything. You go through, and these are very simplified courses, right? They're just kind of like, it's kind of like Pluralsight in a way. If you guys have ever gone to Pluralsight, and Pluralsight's a great resource as well, pluralsight.com, but they do charge, obviously, it's like $50 a month for them. But they are a pretty good resource. But I like MVA, especially because I'm more of a .NET developer. So Microsoft Virtual Academy has a lot of this stuff. And by the way, when you get done with a lot of these courses, there's like a certificate you can print out. It says you completed this. And that's also very good. And I try to accumulate all these certificates as well for when I go in for job interviews and stuff. It's like, I have certificates from blah, 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 and I can prove then that I know X, Y, Z skills. Okay. And then finally, the last two things I want to talk about is boot camps and universities. So I did a video not long ago about whether or not it was worth it to go into a boot camp or should you do a CS degree at a university. There is definitely some worth in getting that CS degree. Obviously, we have 80% of the people that were responding to Stack Overflow were saying they obtained some sort of degree. Okay, that's a lot of people. That is a very large amount of people. And if you don't have a CS degree, you're competing against that 80% to go get that job, right? That's kind of the challenge. Now, the good news is the industry is so hot and requires so many more people. Like it was what I think the last video I showed 24% growth in our industry, right? 24% growth over the next 10 years from 2016 to 2027. There's so much growth in the industry that a lot of the companies that typically would say you need a degree before you can even get hired, before you'll even get an interview. Most of those companies now are starting to reevaluate that position because they can't do it, right? They can't find the personnel to fulfill the seats and get the job done, to fulfill the requirements. And I've known this for a long time. I've known for a long time that you do not need a degree to be skilled, right? It's helpful. It's good in some ways, but I think we all know at this point that going to a 4-year college, not all 4 of those years are practical experience, right? And sometimes you're taking courses that have absolutely nothing to do with the job that you're applying for. So sometimes those things can be very diverting. If I said, you know what? Yeah, so I did great. I spent 8 hours a day, every day, 40 hours a week, but 2 of those I was learning the skills that are required for this job. The other 6, I was going out and playing baseball. I was playing some football. I was throwing the Frisbee around. I was riding my ATV. I was going out picking up on women. I was going to the bars. Like that's how I spent my other time. But 2 hours, I'm telling you, 2 hours every day, I was learning these skills. Is that really going to be an effective learning style, right? Is that an effective way of learning? Obviously, that's not what the college experience is, and I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, like, a lot of the time that you spend on those universities is not necessarily preparing you for the job, right? It's not necessarily giving you the skills. A lot of them do. Don't get me wrong. A lot of universities have great programs that do prepare you, do get you ready, and those programs are excellent. If you can find them, get into them, that's great. I'm not disparaging those at all. But a lot of people who get that degree don't necessarily get it because, you know, they've gone through and they've done all the skills that are required for this particular job. And in fact, I think the number was like 63% of the respondents of Stack Overflow had actually, you know what, let me go back to the screen. You know, like 63% actually had a CS degree, but yet 80% of the respondents had gone to college. So that means that there's this like 17% difference in the number of people who went to college for something that had nothing to do with computer science, right? So there's a lot of people that are even getting that degree, but they're in the industry and they're in an industry that has absolutely nothing to do with software development. So there's a lot of variety, right? Like there's so many different ways you can go about learning skills and be very adept at them and be very knowledgeable about them. You don't have to go through the university experience, which leads me to boot camps. And a lot of you guys already know I work for WazU. I'm the head of curriculum over there for the software full stack web development side. I build the content, I do the videos, I come up with quizzes, I come up with like all the material for that stuff. And I'm always trying to find out what are the skills that the companies, the hiring managers, the hiring partners, what do they want? And I have to consider this in the industry constantly. What is in the industry? What is important to know in order to get hired? And that's what our boot camp is geared towards, right? And that's what most boot camps are geared towards, is how do we, as quickly as possible, get you ramped up to be a viable candidate to get a job? And sometimes it's a very short period of time. Sometimes it's a little longer. We have a 33-week program. We found that that seems to be the best length of time for you to absorb the knowledge and go through the process. And we try to get you to be as hands-on as possible. We have like lots of hands-on activities you have to complete in order to pass each course. So we're really emphasizing all of the things that you need in order to be a competent software developer by the time you get out of the program. That to me makes the most sense. If you're going to spend your time trying to learn a skill, that's like the best way to go about it. Give me the reading material, give me the visual material, and give me the kinesthetic material. What do I need to see? What do I need to hear? What do I need to do? That's what I'm constantly trying to push out, at least on our side. And I'm not saying this is like I'm saying this more as in general. I think most boot camps are trying to do this kind of thing. They're trying to get you through this process to get you into some sort of job as a career in this industry. Okay. So, all right, guys, I'm going to now go ahead and skip down to the questions part where you guys get to ask me all the questions. Typically, I like these to be around the subject matter, but obviously you guys can throw out whatever kind of questions you want. All right. Okay, first question comes from Mark Tuttle. Looking for textbook on solid VBA code, new to coding recommendations. So I'm not very big on textbooks, honestly, Mark. I think that the majority of the material that you could find in a textbook is going to be free online somewhere. So typically I shy away from textbooks. However, you can certainly go to like Amazon, and there are some books that I do recommend. One that I recommend, and has nothing to do with your question though, is one book called Clean Code by Robert C. Martin. Let's do this. VBA coding. Let's see what they got. Let's see if any of these pique my interest. Excel VBA, Mastering VBA for Microsoft Office. The ones produced by... God, there's so many. The Dummies series are really good. I do like the For Dummies series. They've got like an Excel VBA programming for dummies. I'm not going to show this because I don't want you guys to see my account information for Amazon. But yeah, like the For Dummies stuff, I do like those. They tend to be a little bit more basic and kind of come from a more I don't understand perspective, or I don't have previous knowledge or experience. So that's, I think, good. That's how I try to approach my teaching. Mark Tuttle also says your videos are a great help. Awesome. Glad to hear about it, man. Yeah, it's having the videos I think is great, but again, it's the practical application, right? Being able to actually do it, apply it, have some sort of side project, have some sort of application you're working on, have something that you're developing. Go find. I also said in the other video, and I can't believe I didn't mention this, but if you can find like an open source project or someone else's project to go contribute to, that's also really, really good to do. Okay. Mark Tuttle also says, adult learning principles. Teach a man to fish. That's right. Don't fish for them. Don't do things for them. That's a really good one. When you are working with someone else to try to help them, right? When you're going through and you are when you're going through the process of helping someone else with their challenge, you need to make sure that you are not just doing it for them. Okay, don't just do it. It's like, oh, I know how to do that. Let me do that for you. Because then you're not teaching them. The emphasis is on how do you communicate? How do you take what you know and convey what you know to them? And I like doing the YouTube videos. I like doing the how-tos and stuff, the educational videos, because I'm really kind of absorbing it too. I'm thinking, okay, how do I want to explain this? How do I want to demonstrate this? How am I going to show this? What's the code that I'm going to write in order to show this thing? And that gives a little bit more thing, like what is the circumstances where this code makes sense to even apply it? That's another thing on top of just knowing the thing, is when is it best applicable? And you get more and more of that experience just simply by teaching someone, by trying to figure out how do I teach someone how to do this. And that's why I'm constantly emphasizing to my students in WazU as well. Help each other, help your peers, help your fellow student, help your fellow man learn this stuff, because not only are you helping them, but you're helping you probably even more so. You're helping yourself almost more than you're helping them. Okay. SAA Consulting says, morning. Morning, Steve. Thank you for joining us, and thank you so much for being a member. I'll make a quick little plug here. $5 a month. Right, $5 a month means you guys get access directly to me. You guys have a form that you guys can fill out and talk to me directly, and ask me questions about whatever's going on with your database or your application, and I respond directly, and we can start to have a communication. So $5 a month, you get a membership. You also get access to a 10% discount in my Teespring store if you want to buy any merchandise. Again, I'm looking at trying to find some new stuff to put on there because it seems like it's not really popular. So I'm going to try to see if I can find somebody that's going to help me do some better merchandise stuff. But I do want that to be something. I want you guys to be able to buy stuff and like be programming made easy champions, right? Okay. So there's that. And then also we have, at the end of every video that I record during the time that you are a member, as often as I can possibly remember to do this, and that actually just reminded me, I try to mention to you guys, I try to say, these are the people that helped me do the channel. Because like when you guys subscribe, when you guys are subscribing, that's a really big help to the channel. But when you guys are also members, like that little extra bit helps me. I got a new monitor that helps me now set up so I have a proper setup here. And I can do better recordings. I've got this great microphone. I've got a wireless mouse to help me go back and forth through things. I got a great camera you guys can see me through. Like all of that stuff really has come from your guys' support. And when you guys are members, I want to kind of give you guys something back for being members, for being one of those dedicated people. So I try to mention you guys at the end of every video. And I do my best. I swear, I know sometimes I forget, and I apologize for forgetting. But you guys get mentioned at the end of every video that you're a member, right? And then you have access to me directly. You get the 10% off discount. And also every once in a while I do these like Q&As just like this one, but just for members. So, okay. I've probably lost a whole bunch of people now because I just plugged myself with that stuff. Okay. Test says, wow, good recommendation. I don't know what that's for, but I'm glad that it was a good recommendation. I think I do. Okay. SAA Consulting, you posted a link here, and let me go ahead and approve that. Yeah, so MVA, many courses are going to retire, but they're going to be on a new platform. So they're still continuing this, right? They still want to have it, but it's just that they're going to move some of those videos. Kent Dutro says, a lot of good information here. Looks like I have a couple of websites to check out. Yep. And again, I'll post the links to that in the description of the YouTube video. Even though the YouTube algorithm absolutely hates when you post a link to some outside reference, absolutely hates it, but I'm still going to do it. Okay. So SAA Consulting says, whoops, obviously you already know that since the announcement is on the screen. Yeah, right? To simplify the journey, we are consolidating our learning service. Yeah. But still, thank you for pointing it out. I think that's a good thing to do. I appreciate it. Okay. Valeria M says, a textbook gives you a guide way to learn when you're just starting. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I do see some validity for textbooks. I just think that there's so many more resources online because you think of it more as like open source. Okay. If you do a textbook, and I've been asked to write textbooks, and the thing about writing a textbook is it's got a very short shelf life. Okay. It's only good for so long because the technology is going to move on. If I wrote a book on Access 2016, by this time next year, it's going to be obsolete because 2019 is going to be out. So what would be the point? There's a lot of good information in there, right? There's a lot of stuff that's going to be translatable, but for somebody who's trying to now learn Access 2019, they're going to see that book and they're going to be like, I don't want to do that because that's 3 years old. Whereas the stuff that comes up online, I think is more eternal, right? It's like this, and it's continuously growing from all sorts of different sources. If I wrote a textbook and that became the textbook, that's only one source of information. Right? Where's the challenge in that? Who's challenging me on my assumptions and the methodology of how I'm teaching it, or the different variety of ways of learning it? There's really no challenge there. It's just like, this is how we do it. Whereas with something like the internet, where you have all of these different resources, there's kind of like so many vast different ways of learning that everybody's trying to tackle, right? And I think that's kind of why I prefer using the web. But yes, you're absolutely right. Having a textbook is a good guideline, right? Like, here's this thing that's going to help me learn some of the basics. It's kind of like a go back to reference, right? It's kind of like this steady reference I can always go back to. I can always crack it open and go find it, thumb through and find the page that had that example. I remember reading that example, etc. But I think you could do exactly the same thing if you go online and you bookmark pages, right? Or you find somebody's blog and you read it regularly. Or you find videos like this on YouTube. You find a channel that you like and you ask questions like this. Like, this is a perfect example, I think, for you guys to learn. Ask me questions. And if I don't know the answer, great, because then we can both learn together, right? Okay. Mark Tuttle says TX, which I assume means thanks. You're welcome. Valeria M says, what is the next best language to learn after VBA? Okay, so let me, I have to kind of say, VBA is a difficult language to jump off of and into something else. I'd say probably the closest language to VBA that is popular, that probably would be the easiest transition, but there's a lot of caveats to, would be Python. Okay, the style of reading, what you see, how to read it, there's a lot of similarities there. It's much more in depth in Python. There's a lot more stuff to it, so that's a potential route for you to go. However, I would say the C-based languages are the best route to go overall for your overall education. Like, if you're wanting to learn how programs work, how to write programs properly, and understand like symbolic, like we use a lot of symbols in the C# language. We use curly braces, parentheses, semicolons, like these all kind of mean something, and it helps to kind of shift that part of your brain that reads code in a slightly different way than just flat out language. Like, VBA is just language. There's no symbols really involved in it. Okay, there's a couple parentheses here and there, and an equal sign here and there, but there's not a lot of sophistication to it. Whereas with the C# languages, or I should say the C-based languages, I especially love C#. That's the one that I love to tell people to go learn, because I think if you learn C# language, you learn all the other languages kind of in one. Like, everything else flows from C#. I always like to equate it to this. When you are learning any sort of new language, you are interpreting that new language through your comfort language, right? So I speak English. If I wanted to go learn Spanish, every time I wanted to speak Spanish, I wanted to go learn a word in Spanish, I would reinterpret that word back into English in order for my brain to comprehend it and understand it. So what is your home base language? Like, what is that core language that you can rely upon as a rock steady? I get it. I fully understand it. And also, it helps you kind of make inroads into those other languages. And for me, that's C#. Now, other people might have a completely different experience, but for me, C#, knowing it is so wonderful because I can use it to translate other languages. And I started out learning VBA before I learned C#. Yet I still prefer C# over VBA by a long shot. Okay, that just should go to tell you how much of a difference it means to me. Okay, Center, boy, a lot of questions. This is great. I love it. Center Negative says, speaking of practical application, would you consider doing a video series on Access application development with a specific app in mind instead of more generalized snippet process videos? Okay, I did mold this over. I have molded this over a lot. Is it better to have like one application that we build from scratch to go all the way through? The reason I don't do that is because it becomes, if you don't follow along, like every single video requires that you know something from the other one, and it's not, you may not really be picking up any practical knowledge from it, right? It would just be a video that just kind of like continues the process from the other one. Now, I understand why a lot of people do it, and I avoid it because I want more of the general understanding. You need to understand how these things work so that you can then apply them to your specific situation. If I teach you how to do something very specific to this one particular thing, that requires that you understand that particular thing deeply, and you have to have had all of those previous videos up to that point, right? You have to have watched, and from a YouTube perspective, that might be great because then it like forces you to go all the way back and watch all of those videos. But the whole point I want with my channel is somebody should be able to come to any one of the videos and learn something from it that they can then go and apply to their application without having to know all of this prior stuff, okay? Sometimes that's impossible, right? Sometimes you have to have some sort of thing that you're building off of. But if I did it in this complete, like we're going to start from this thing and we're going to build all the way through, then that becomes problematic because then you have to have very, what we call tribal knowledge, right? You have to know how that thing was built and how we got to this point before you can know what we're even doing. And that's going to turn off a lot of people who just came to that video. If that's the first video you see, you're going to be like, I'm blown out of the water. I don't understand this. And they're just going to turn away. They're going to turn away from the channel. They're going to turn away from the knowledge. So I thought about it a very long time about my strategy. Was I going to go and do more general things and explain things in a more general, and I do build an application, right? It's just not a very, like, it's not a very specific application. But I did that specifically so that it could be as widely applicable to everyone's situation and circumstance as possible and as inclusive as possible to hopefully get them to understand that knowledge. But I do appreciate the question, and I do totally understand why some people would prefer learning that way. Like, give me this thing and I want to learn from top to bottom. But for me and my channel, I just felt like this was the better way to go. Now, that doesn't mean I won't change my mind somewhere down the road. I may come up with, I may have some time to build something from top to bottom and show you guys how to do that. But I just for right now, especially the way that this channel is positioned and, you know, my other constraints, I work full time. I just don't really have that kind of time to go through and build out from top to bottom. Okay. Antonio D'Amore says, I follow your videos from Italy. Thank you for your work. You're welcome. And thank you for being a channel subscriber or viewer. I really appreciate it. Mike Masij Maliki. Hello, Steve. Great job. All the best from Poland. Thank you very much. You know, it's great when I hear that, like, people from all over, from Italy, from Poland, from Australia, from Japan, like Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Iraq, and like all these different countries, Israel. It's amazing to me that so many different people can come around this subject. It's great. Mark Tuttle says, agreed that the shelf life of a book is limited. Yeah. And unfortunately it is. Like, again, I do think that there's a place for textbooks, but like all that material is already out online and it's usually getting more updated online. Right? You do a Google search for the same words, you're going to get the most latest up-to-date information typically. Center Negative says, as far as textbooks go for MS Access, which unfortunately only touches a little bit of VBA macros, I could recommend New Perspectives on Microsoft Access, which goes through specific use cases. Thank you. So Center Negative says, New Perspectives on Microsoft Access is a book that you should go check out. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I may have to go check that out. It's good. Thidakun, man, you guys with your names. Thidakun, Lert Vilak. You know, I'm just gonna give up. I'm sorry. I just butcher names. Hi, Steve. Your clip is very helpful. Which clip? I have lots of clips. I think you mean all of them. But thank you for watching. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm not meaning to make fun of you. I don't mean to offend if I have, but I'm a silly American, and I have my English, my very limited knowledge of English, and any other language is just kind of like So I have a difficult time pronouncing foreign sounding names. I really just do, and I apologize for that. Valeria M 2011 says, "Can I program Microsoft Office with C#?" Okay. No. No, not directly, but you can build like DLL libraries that do things for you in C#, and then you can tap into them. So you can kind of, but not directly. Like you can build libraries to do things in .NET and C#, and then you can tell Microsoft to go do these things. And then there's also like add-ons and plugins that you can design for Access and, you know, other Office applications. You can do that type of development. But if you're looking to actually like make something in Access, you really need to just do VBA. You're not going to really be able to do C#. You can do it as like this add-on stuff. Like you can go do this kind of cool thing with the system and then tell VBA to go access that library and do stuff with it. But yeah, most of it you have to do it in VBA. Okay. SAA Consulting says, Valerie M. Last good programming books on Microsoft and Access VBA were Professional Access 2013, Programming by Henning, Clothier et al. When MS was touting web apps, which are no more. Yeah, web apps are gone the way of the dodo bird. But thank you for some more recommendations. Appreciate that. Valeria M says, SAA Consulting, how do I advance if my job is programming MS Office? More of stuff like this, like just work on it, like keep practicing. Don't rely on textbooks. Okay. They're good for resources. Don't get me wrong. They're good as like this reference, but you're not going to just like pick up 5 books, read them all the way through and become an expert. That's not how you do it. You've got to actually dig in, find problems to solve, find challenges, fix things, and then go help other people. Take on other people's challenges. Tell them how to do things. Help them out. That's how you become an expert, right? It's that leap from knowledge to wisdom. That's where that comes from. Okay, Paul Purpura says, greetings from Central Virginia, Steve. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Okay, Center Negatives. Is it reasonable to just learn C# or Python and develop an add-in for Access or Excel instead of sweating all the VBA development and consulting oneself to what is essentially a single-use language? No, I mean, I'm afraid that with Office, you have to learn VBA. Like, you have to. You can't use those other systems in order to do something with it. If you're really, really wanting to go learn like C# or Python, just avoid Office. Like that, they're two totally different ecosystems. Okay, it's like if you wanted to program my printer, right? You wanted to develop a driver for my printer, you wouldn't do it in VBA, right? They're just not compatible environments. They're not compatible ecosystems. They're not going to work together. When it comes to like .NET, C#, Python and stuff, they're not related to Office. Office is its own little tiny ecosystem, and you have to learn VBA in order for you to do it. Let me go ahead and show that. Okay, Valeria M says, if it is Excel or Word or even Access, there are dozens of good courses on Udemy for $12 right now, sometimes as low as $10. Yeah, so Udemy is another one of those good resources. I find that Udemy is a little bit more, you kind of hit or miss on some of their courses. Sometimes the teaching is really good. Sometimes it's like, I don't know what kind of standards Udemy has in order for you to develop a course for there. Maybe it's just publish, and if you're good, you get recommended. Okay, Pal Guy says, Steve, thanks for your videos. It helped me a lot. You're welcome. A set of negatives says, back to textbooks. To be fair, the changes between different versions of Access, say 10, 2013, 2016, 365, are pretty minimal, incremental, and MS removes more functionality than they add. Yeah, that's another big problem, is like they consistently remove all the good stuff. It's so, what was the other, there was one that I just encountered the other day, and I'm like, why would you drop that? That makes no sense to drop that. And Microsoft does this all the time. They just constantly like, hey, here's this really good thing that we're all relying upon. Gone. You know what? I need coffee. Remember, this is Coffee with Steve. Boy, lots of questions, lots of viewers. This is great. Center Negative says, oops, sorry for asking the same question as Valeria. Oh, don't worry about it. No worries. No new content for a while, but very similar to Steve's series. Udemy has some very good courses for as little as $10 to $12. So, Access Alanan. Sorry, it's a little broken up in my screen here. SA Consulting and Steve, thanks. You're welcome, Valeria. El Harfi. Oh man. Can I just call you Mohammed, Mr. Mohammed? Hi, Steve. I'm from Morocco, and I've been following your videos for a year now. Thank you for your good efforts. You're welcome. You're very, very welcome. And again, I apologize for not being able to pronounce your name. I feel awful about it. Every single time somebody comes up here with a name that I am unable to pronounce, I feel like a total, like, worthless human being. Because you guys deserve to have your names pronounced correctly. And I am not the best viable candidate for doing that. Bosco says, hi, Steve. Great work. Thank you. Is it possible to earn as Access developer? Yes, it is. I did it for years. Absolutely. You can make a living doing Access development. Is it going to be as profitable as some of the other languages and development systems? As of right now, no. If you learn Python, or you learn C#, or you learn, I wouldn't say PHP. PHP is probably around the same. Yeah, you could probably make a little bit more if you learned PHP. But Python, Java. Oh, if you learn Java, yeah, it's a real hot language right now. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of tail off on those kind of questions for just right now. I released a video yesterday, and this is a totally different thing. And I'm just kind of, you guys can give me some feedback in the comments here. So I released a completely different video yesterday, totally different than what I typically do. And it's the top 10 reasons you didn't get hired, right? Top 10 reasons or you're not getting hired. And I did it in kind of a comic strip way, right? So I kind of like have these serious notes about what it is that that you need to do in order to get hired. But over the top of this is like, here, let me just pull this up.
Wondering why that job.
Oh yeah. So I'm really curious if some of you guys seen it. Have some of you guys watched it? Have you guys done it? You know, did you guys enjoy it? Do you like the style? It's very different. Let me just kind of bring this up. That one there. Yeah. So top 10 reasons you didn't get hired for the job. And I'm thinking about if these are real popular, if these are things that you guys like, I might do some more of them. They take a little bit of time to do, but I do think that there might be some worthwhileness to it, right? I'm giving you kind of this cartoon type of thing as illustration, right, of the different scenarios. And trust me, I can't stay serious on any of these. I just don't have I don't have the disposition to be serious all the time. I can't do it. So I have to inject a lot of humor in these things. And so a lot of these stills, it's kind of funny because you probably have to like listen to it, and watching it are two completely different experiences because the comics don't necessarily go along with the audio precisely. They're kind of interrelated, but I kind of wanted to keep it lighthearted and funny while at the same time presenting you some decent information. So it's kind of a mixture of both. So I'm curious if any of you guys have seen this. If you did, tell me what your thoughts are. I definitely, you know, if you don't want to just go down and drop them in the comment section below, which Zizos did. I don't know how to Zizos. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. But if you like it, please let me know. I'm really curious to hear what your guys' thoughts on this, because sometimes I will try these things. Why do my glasses disappear? Sometimes it's a green screen. I have a little filter on my thing that filters out green. So let me turn that off, go back to my monologue screen. But I would really appreciate if you guys go check it out. It's a different direction for me, and I like to try these new things out and see if there's something that you guys like. If you do, then I make more of them. If you don't, then I don't do any more of them. And I like to experiment. I like to try to find different ways to reach out to you guys and find content that you guys enjoy. So your feedback is really, really important on these things. If you want to see more of these things or you don't want me to do it anymore, tell me, let me know. I've got to know. Otherwise, I could just be wasting my time on stuff that is completely irrelevant. But I thought that this would be kind of an entertaining, interesting little way of presenting some information. So I'm really, really hoping to hear back from you guys. All right. Ram Jan says, coffee with Steve. Yes, that's right. Every morning at 7:30 p.m. I'm sorry, a.m. Pacific time. I better make sure that I put that correctly. p.m. 7:30 a.m. Pacific time every single morning on the weekdays. I try to do coffee with Steve. Unfortunately, yesterday I missed it because of some stuff that went on, but I definitely make it a point to try to do it every single weekday. Mr. Muhammad says, please tell me how I can have a full screen view for the main database menu adaptable for a PC screen sizes. So I think what you're talking about is the anchoring, and I have not talked about anchoring. I do plan on covering anchoring in the 2016 series when it comes to the forums, but essentially it's the anchoring section. You can say that you want form content to either like adjust it to the screen size. So when you make the screen larger or smaller, what happens to the elements on the screen, and that's what the anchoring does. All right, so that's gonna have to do it for me, guys. I got to get to work. I'm already a little bit late, so that's okay. I have a little bit of leeway, but I do need to go. I appreciate all of your guys' questions. Thank you so very much. Again, if you guys want to sign up and be a member, it's only $5 a month. You guys get direct access to me. You guys can fill out a form and like ask me questions directly. Send me your databases, send me screenshots, send me your code, and I can look at it. I can interact with it directly. And it's kind of the best way for me to kind of filter some of those questions. I get a lot of questions in the comments that are just like, I can't possibly help you without going through like an hour-long conversation where we explain and discuss what's going on with your database. So this is kind of a way for me to funnel people from out of these comment sections into something that's more easier for us to have an actual communication conversation. With that in mind, I do also want to thank everybody who is a member. So that's going to be Olubayo Olusakan, who is the first guy to sign up and be a member. Thank you so much. Mrs. CY, I'm so fly. That's right. SAA Consulting, Steve. Thank you very much. Rishi. Kanan Krishnan for technical, Samuel Niktesi Tabiri, Jim Griggs, HRU Bricks, which is Henry, Ron Howe, Cormac Keenan, and Kent Dutro. Thank you so much, all of you, for being members. I really appreciate it. You guys can keep sending me those questions through that form. You get the 10% off at my Teespring store. You guys get access to the Q&A sessions that are for members only. And then also you get mentioned at the end of these videos, right? Whenever I can remember to do it, I try to mention you guys and thank you guys at the end of every one of the videos. So thank you so much, everybody, for following me today. Don't forget to hit that like button when you guys see it up there and follow me. You can hit that little bell icon so you can get notified whenever I do these Coffee with Steves. You guys get the little pop-up live, going live. So hit that little bell next to the subscribe button, and that way you guys can get notified. Okay, thank you so much, guys, everybody, for joining me. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you for joining me today on Coffee with Steve. Bye-bye.